Hey everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about microphones. For those of us who are just starting out with streaming or podcasting, we might be a little bit mystified with the microphone choices out there and then the wide range of price points. You might be wondering, like, do I need to spend $400 on a microphone in order to get good quality sound? Or is some $25 no-name brand microphone good enough to get some decent audio? Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I do want to cover just a few of the basics and give you some recommendations if you're just starting out. There are two major categories of microphones: condenser microphones and dynamic microphones. Condenser microphones, like this Mayono microphone, have a very smooth frequency response that provides very clear, detailed, natural sound with crisp highs. They are rather sensitive and require a pretty well-treated room in order to produce the kind of clean sound that you might be looking for. So there are a couple drawbacks to condenser mics, though. The first one is that because the condenser mic uses an electrical charge to move the diaphragm, if you're using an XLR microphone, that condenser mic will require 48 volts of phantom power. So you'll need to make sure that your interface can provide that, or you'll need to pick up a separate phantom power supply. Now, USB condenser mics don't have this problem because they can draw bus power from the USB port. The second drawback is that condenser mics are actually quite sensitive, so they'll pick up a lot of background noise. If you're recording in an untreated room, you're going to end up with a lot of the noise that's just coming from all of the sound in your room, whether that's reverb off of the walls, whether that's maybe fans from your PC, or even an air conditioning unit that might be in your room. And if you live in a hot and humid climate, I know you don't want to be turning that AC off while you go on a 3-hour stream. Because of that, a condenser mic might not be your best option. Now, of course, you can always apply a noise gate, but when you apply a noise gate to a condenser mic in a room that has a lot of background noise, you're going to have to increase the threshold of that noise gate, and that's going to introduce some wonkiness to the quality of your voice. It'll make you sound choppy, and it'll kind of defeat the purpose of getting a mic that can produce a nice natural sound. Now, dynamic microphones like this PreSonus PD70 that I have here, they have a narrower frequency response than dynamic microphones, but they are able to handle louder sounds without a lot of distortion. That's why dynamic microphones are great for live performances, because they can handle the loud singing that often is associated with a concert, and they're also great at rejecting background noise, which is another reason that they're great for live performances, because the singer can sing directly into the mic, and the mic is not going to pick up a whole lot of sound coming from, say, the drummers. That background noise rejection is great for an untreated room, so it's not going to pick up a whole lot of the reverb. Now, you're still going to want to do what you can, like putting down some rug, or maybe putting up some foam panels, or even recording in a room that is already carpeted, has a bed or a couch or other things in there to absorb the sound. But a dynamic microphone is going to do a good job on its own of rejecting a lot of that background noise. Now, despite the fact that it doesn't reproduce that natural sound that you would get from a condenser mic, it still creates a great sound, and in fact produces that broadcast radio voice that you're used to hearing when you listen to a talk show on the radio or even your favorite DJ, because radio mics are often dynamic microphones. Now, before I do a comparison, I do want to talk a little bit about polar patterns. All microphones have a polar pattern. Most mics that you'll come across as you search for your first microphone are going to have a cardioid pattern, which means that they'll pick up sound directly in front of them, but their ability to pick up sound drops off as you move away from the front of the microphone. You can also find figure eight patterns, which pick up sound from directly in front and directly behind the microphone, but reject sound from the sides. and omnidirectional microphones, which pick up sound coming from every direction. Okay, so now let's see how these two mics sound. For these demos, I'm not going to be doing any processing, but I am, however, going to be boosting the level of the PreSonus because it's not a powered mic, so it has a lower output level. Both of these mics are plugged into a very simple Neewer NWO2 mixing console, which is sending that analog signal into my Sound Blaster X G6 gaming DAC. And that's converting the analog signal into a digital signal for my computer to read. Okay, now I'm going to demo the dynamic microphone, and I'm going to test the polar pattern first. I'm talking from directly in front of the microphone at a pretty normal conversational tone. This is how I sound from 90 degrees at around the same volume of voice. Here's how the microphone sounds at the opposite 90 degrees at around the same volume of voice. Now here's how I sound directly behind the microphone at around the same volume of voice. Okay, now I'm going to demo the condenser microphone, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll check the polar pattern of the microphone. I'm speaking directly in front of the microphone at a pretty normal conversational tone. Okay, this is the condenser microphone facing around 90 degrees from me. Here's the condenser microphone facing the opposite 90 degrees from me, and I'm speaking in that same conversational tone. Okay, now I'm speaking directly behind the microphone at the same conversational tone. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate how the microphone sounds at various distances from the microphone. So I'm speaking at a normal conversational tone around an inch or so away from the microphone. Now I'm speaking at that same conversational tone about a foot away from the microphone. Now I'm speaking at that same conversational tone about 2 feet away from the microphone. Okay, now I'm speaking in that same conversational tone about 2 inches away from the microphone. Now I'm speaking about a foot away from the microphone. Now I'm speaking about 2 feet away from the microphone. Now that we have a sense for how these microphones sound, here are my recommendations. If you're just going to be podcasting or talking on your live stream, I'd go with a dynamic mic. It's great at rejecting background noise, and you're not going to have to worry so much about treating your room, making it easier to get started. Also, you get the fun proximity effect, which gives a nice big booming quality to your voice when you get right up against the microphone. However, if you're going to be recording music like singing or even a musical instrument like an acoustic guitar, you'll probably want to go with a condenser mic because of its wider frequency response and more natural sound. You'll just have to work on your room a little bit to provide some sound dampening, and hopefully you don't have thin walls like I do, and the traffic on the busy road that you live on isn't going to bleed into your room. Now, just remember that if you're getting an XLR condenser microphone, you're going to need to pick up an interface that can provide 48 volts of phantom power to the microphone, or get a separate 48-volt phantom power supply. You're not going to need to worry about that if you're getting a USB condenser mic. And if you want to check out my stream, I go live on Twitch at least once a week right now. I haven't quite figured out a schedule at the moment, but if you head over to twitch.tv/mostlyeasymode, you'll find my current schedule, and you can get notifications for when I go live. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't let anyone tell you you're not a real gamer for playing your games on easy mode.